You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Morning Joe blows up on guest as a mess now devolves into yelling, based on an article by Tom Bogany. The litmus test is power, not loyalty. A cable-grade meltdown over real estate violence. Joe Scarborough and Donnie Deutsch spent airtime arguing over whether support for Israel has become a Democratic candidate test. Deutsch framed it as a puzzle. Scarborough, unusually, pointed at the video evidence, Gaza, Lebanon, US-funded bombs, and the fact that Washington has let Israel act with impunity. Who actually holds the leverage? The source accidentally gets to the point: the United States is not a bystander. We're paying for those bombs is the whole story. The relevant power is not a pundit's discomfort or a donor's mood. It is the executive branch, Congress, and the Democratic Party leadership that keeps funding and covering for a policy they claim they cannot control. That is not confusion. It is a decision structure. The misdirection game. Deutsch's line about not knowing how we got here is elite amnesia performing innocence. The framing pretends the problem is that Democrats are being asked to answer for Israel too directly, as if the real issue were bad vibes inside the coalition. That is nonsense. The issue is American material support for bombardment and the political cowardice that keeps it normalized. The article's weak frame is the familiar one. It treats a policy failure as a messaging problem. It is not a messaging problem. It is an enabling problem. Democrats cannot outsource accountability. If a Democratic candidate has to navigate an Israel loyalty test, that is not some mysterious accident of discourse. It reflects a party that has too often allowed donor pressure, establishment habit, and fear of intra-elite backlash to outrank democratic accountability. That should be said plainly. Democrats are the only institutional vehicle capable of stopping the authoritarian right, but that does not excuse them from feeding a foreign policy machine that helps flatten civilians and then pretends the controversy is about tone. Democratic power is supposed to mean leverage. Too often it means surrender with better branding. What Scarborough said quietly. Scarborough's shouting matched the moral reality better than Deutsch's bafflement did. The images from Gaza and Lebanon are not abstractions. They are the consequence of decisions made by governments that could have cut off support, imposed conditions, or used leverage and chose not to. The uglier truth is that Washington has trained itself to treat this as a perpetual exception, a zone where consequence can be spoken about endlessly and avoided indefinitely. That is how institutional cruelty survives, through repetition, deference, and the insistence that nobody really chose it. The pattern beneath the noise. This is the broader pattern across U.S. politics. Power hides behind process, harm is laundered through complexity, and those with the most institutional control act offended when anyone names what their decisions produce. The public gets argument theater. Civilians get the bombs. If the Democratic coalition wants to mean anything, it cannot keep mistaking silence for discipline or complicity for pragmatism. The governing class already knows how we got here. The problem is that it keeps choosing to stay. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Ross Story for today's article. With the automated voice of Sam, thanks for listening.